I want to thank everyone for being here today. I'm Caroline Merowit, the commander here at American Legion, Palm Valley Post 233. It is such an honor to host with Governor DeSantis this occasion to honor and remember our first responders, both past and present. When I thought about what I was going to say today to the governor, I was trying to think of something very impressive. What could I possibly say? But after really thinking about it, the only genuine words that could really come to mind are thank you. In this uncertain world of conflict, sickness, and unrest, in this nation divided by propaganda and hate, I'm grateful that we live here in our great state of Florida, where we know that while all of the things may haunt us day and night, you're there fighting for our freedoms. We rest much easier knowing that our leader is on our side. So thank you. To all our first responders, my prayer is that as this entire nation remembers the horrific events of 9/11 20 years ago, as they are sitting around expressing gratitude for all that you do each day, that you feel the collective comfort of knowing that our nation, our communities cannot be without you. Please carry on each day knowing that we are all grateful for you and your sacrifice. So this is our renewal year for our membership. So instead of mailing you your membership renewal, we will take advantage of this opportunity and personally deliver it to you.
Okay.
So this is for 2022, and the membership here also voted to make you an honorary life member, which means...
Wonderful. Yay. Great. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Does that come with steak night on Friday?
Steak night on Friday, on the house.
That's great. Floor's mine?
Floor is yours.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for the membership. I know, although when we were back in the day coming, you guys have made a lot of great improvements over the years, so good on you for that, and we're really honored to have the life membership as well. We're also, thought it was appropriate to, as we come to the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks of September 11th, that we reflect on all the folks who have fought for us over the years in response to those attacks. Obviously, remember the lives that were lost on that day, and I think it's very, very appropriate to do so. Before I do that, though, I just want to say very clearly, when I served in the Navy, I didn't do Afghanistan, I did Iraq, but I remember very distinctly taking an oath as a commissioned officer, and the oath was not necessarily to support any particular individual or even necessarily to any particular physical location or whatever it was. Your number one responsibility was to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And so you take that oath very seriously. People have spilled blood in defense of the Constitution throughout our history. People have worked very hard in a variety of contexts to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And so that oath that I took in the military, that many of you took when you served in the military, when you get elected to office like governor, you take the same oath to support the laws and Constitution of both the state of Florida and the United States. And when you do that, sometimes you're called upon to fight for it. And I think now is the time that we are going to do that. When you have a president like Biden issuing unconstitutional edicts against the American people, we have a responsibility to stand up for the Constitution and to fight back. And we are doing that in the state of Florida. This is a president who has acknowledged in the past he does not have the authority to force this on anybody. And this order would result potentially in millions of Americans losing their jobs. I think we should be protecting people's jobs, not trying to kick people out of work right now. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing in Florida. But he's acknowledged that they can't do this. He was asked, no, you can't mandate. His administration said, no, it's not a federal government can't do that. They can't mandate. Now they're in a situation, no act of Congress, mind you, just a unilateral executive order that, again, is not scientifically valid. I mean, they don't even recognize people that have immunity through infection, which many people do. But it's something that could result in the destruction of the livelihoods of so many people throughout our country. So we are going to be working hard in Florida to provide protections for people. Obviously, there'll be different things in the courts that will be done, but you can't just sit there and hope some lawsuit is going to succeed. You have a responsibility to act, and so we will be acting in the state of Florida to provide protections for people. People should not be cast aside because they make a medical decision for themselves. They should not lose their job. They should not be unable to put food on their table just because they made a different decision than the powers that be are demanding that they make. And so we think that this is important for all those jobs that are at stake, but we also think this is important much beyond this particular issue. And if the federal government can get away with doing this, going right at the heart of people's livelihoods and their ability to provide for their families, what's going to come next? Remember, we were promised this would be 15 days to slow the spread. And where are we at right now? This is a much different thing than anybody promised us. So they have not been honest with us from the beginning on a lot of this stuff. And clearly, we have a president acting outside the bounds of the Constitution. And the state of Florida, me as governor, I'm going to have the legislature involved as well. We're going to fight back and offer protections. And that will not only be good for the people who end up getting their jobs saved, but that'll be good for future generations to know that our constitutional system held firm and that we stood up for what was right. Now, as we look to the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, we do that with an even heavier heart than we have over the previous anniversaries in light of the service members that were tragically killed in Afghanistan very recently. These were people who had dedicated their careers and lives to serving the American people in uniform, and I've been able to speak with one of the mothers who happened to live in Florida. And, these are folks that really believed in this country. They believed in the mission. Many of them volunteered to go over there. They didn't even need to do that. It wasn't something they were forced to do. They wanted to do that. They wanted to be a part of this. And yet, to see that happen without any planning, with no support, basically, a total fiasco, they were not served well by their leadership in this. And we honor them for their service. We thank them for being willing to put themselves out there. But we also, I think, as a community, are angry at what happened because it shouldn't have happened. And so as we go into tomorrow's anniversary, just understand there's families out there who have very, very raw and fresh wounds from this. And I can only imagine the Americans that have been left behind, what may be happening and what may happen over the coming days, weeks, and even months. And so keep those folks in mind when we're doing this, because I think that it was a real stain on our country to see what happened the way it was. When you wear the uniform, the services are all different. I mean, the Navy guys that are here, we have a certain thing. Marines, obviously, different. Army. But every single one of those services has an ethos of leave nobody behind. And that was not honored with what was happening over the last many weeks. And so, and I don't know why it was done that way. I mean, people say that they wanted to have some type of 9/11 photo op, which obviously is not going to happen now. But it was not done right, and those folks were not supported the way they needed to be supported. And to see the Taliban with all our military equipment over there, I mean, this is just humiliating for our country. So let's just understand. There's a lot of people that are hurting, a lot of people that have been impacted by this very directly. And the fact of the matter is, for most of the last couple years, I mean, we didn't suffer very many casualties in Afghanistan, and so this is something that has been brought to the forefront in a really devastating way. I think we all have our own remembrances of what happened on 9/11. It was something that our country after the Cold War had a pretty good run in terms of what was happening. We were the dominant superpower. There was not any major world conflicts. We had a relatively healthy economy for most of that. And I was a kid growing up. I grew up, 80s and 90s. It's actually a great time to be in this country, and there was a lot of great stuff. 9/11 happened, and it totally changed not only our country, but the world around us. And, I remember seeing what was going on. I instantaneously knew who was responsible for it, because who else would do something like that? And I think we all resolved, these people are going to have hell to pay. And we are going to respond, and we are going to respond very quickly and very strongly. But if you remember that day, you see the planes go in, you see the smoke, you see people running out, obviously very, very distraught. We didn't know immediately, and we found out over the coming days, all the number of people in uniform who were running into into those buildings. And many of these people were doing that, climbing up all those stairs, trying to usher people to safety, knowing full well that they would likely never see the great blue skies again, because of what was happening, and the chance of them making it out alive was virtually zero at that point. And yet they went in and were able to save hundreds, if not thousands, of people just in those initial minutes and hours. And that's really, when you talk about people that are first responders, I mean, we see how some of these police officers have been treated around the country in the last couple of years. It's really been disgraceful. But anytime something happens, and 9/11 is obviously above anything that we deal with on a daily basis, but anytime something like that happens, it's the people in uniform that are always running towards the danger to be able to save everybody else. And they did that, and the number of people in the fire department, police, Port Authority in New York City who died saving others, that's really what heroism is all about. And so in one of our worst days as a country, to see so many of our fellow citizens mowed down by fanatical Islamists like that, in one of the worst days, we saw some of the best of what this country has to offer, with people who do stand on the wall and will go into the danger to be able to help other people. And I have no doubt, and we know now definitively, they saved a lot of lives that day, and they gave their own lives in order to save others. So let's thank and remember those first responders who responded immediately, mostly in New York, but of course in Washington as well. Let's also remember the folks who brought down the plane in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We have Todd Beamer's father lived in Florida for a long time. I think he still does. David, great guy. But they were in a situation where this plane was getting hijacked. They figured out what the modus operandi was, so they knew that this was not going to be something where they just touched it down, tried to get money or whatever. They knew that plane was going to be used as a weapon to kill other people. And so they had to make the momentous decision to not let that happen, bring it down, knowing full well that would mean 100% of their own demise. And yet they did it, and that was probably heading towards the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. that day. But wherever it would have ended up, clearly we would have had hundreds, if not thousands, of more people that would have been killed that day. And so their heroism to take matters into their own hands, to understand the stakes, and to be fearless, and to say, you know what? These fanatics are not going to succeed on our watch. And so they were able to save a lot of people. So we thank them as well. We also just remember the families who lost people that day. I can tell you, I've been able over the years just to meet a variety of people who've been touched on that. I mean, people lost husbands, wives, they lost mothers, they lost fathers, they lost sons and daughters, and it's left a huge mark on our country ever since. But I think the legacies of a lot of those people have been very profound, and I think they've inspired a lot of folks to do a lot of good things. And I can tell you, I was somebody who was not in the military prior to 9/11. I went in. I know a lot of people ended up going in because you wanted to stand up for our country, and you wanted to fight back, and you weren't going to let this stand for all these innocent people to be harmed in that way. And that does bring us to the military veterans who served over this time period. You go back and look, where was the previous most significant attack on America prior to 9/11? It was Pearl Harbor. And Pearl Harbor, of course, got us kind of touched off the U.S. Entrance into World War II. But if you look back at World War II, some of you may, we don't have as many World War II veterans as we used to. We may have a few at this post still. I hope so. But it was everyone in society was enlisted in that fight. Everyone got drafted. People were doing all this stuff. And it was really a society-wide effort. When the war on terrorism started after 9/11, there was no military draft. You're talking about a very small segment of people who volunteered to wear the uniform who had the burdens placed on them. So if you were to go to, say, like when I was in Iraq in 2007, 2008, you're serving alongside people who've been deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan almost continuously since 2001. People were on their third, fourth deployment. And so we ask people to do certain military missions, but we're really asking a small number of people to do it over and over and over again. So I don't think we've had a time in American history where you had these burdens placed on such a small segment of our population and have them do it over and over again. And you understand how that what can happen when those responsibilities are placed on people. I mean, it's not conducive to have a family life if you're constantly in Baghdad or in Ramadi or wherever they send you. You obviously had relationships frayed. You had a lot of lost opportunities. Of course, we had a lot of casualties in both Iraq and Afghanistan, many wounded in action. And I know this community has done a lot to help a lot of our wounded service members, and that's the absolute right thing to do. But there was a lot of costs involved in those operations, and those costs really did fall on a very small segment of the population. And I remember thinking when I was over in Iraq, we were there during the surge when Al-Qaeda in Iraq was ascended and kind of turned the tide on that. And it was something that was always front of mind in the military community. But, you go out to a lot of communities in America, there were a lot of people that didn't really know anybody that was in the military for a long time. I mean, and it was something that was, you almost wouldn't even know that it was going on unless you were really reading the news religiously. And so I just want to say thanks for folks for joining, for volunteering, and for doing that over and over again, understanding the burdens, understanding the risks to your physical safety, your lives, but also the emotional toll that it's taken. I think we've done a lot better in addressing some of the invisible wounds of war since the global war on terrorism compared to what we did previously. We actually did, inspired by one of our organizations here in town with Canines for Warriors, trying to find different ways to help veterans who are suffering from post-traumatic stress. Just pumping people with pharmaceuticals was not a winning formula for a lot of our veterans. And so you had organizations like that were pairing with service dogs, really help people turn the corner and be very productive. I actually introduced legislation when I was in Congress to get the VA involved so that this could be something that would be more readily available for our veterans. And didn't pass it when I was there, but it just got passed recently and signed into law. So it was only about 4 or 5 years later. Also should recognize and say thank you to the family members of people who serve. The spouses, the kids. It takes an enormous toll on that life. And when you're a military spouse, you're signing up for a lot. And it's not something that is always the most pleasant thing. And the realities of the situation are, your spouse can get called at any time. And that's obviously very disruptive if you're trying to raise a family. And then it creates a lot of anxiety because when you're in a hostile zone, people are always going to fear the worst. And that has really taken, I know, a lot of toll on a lot of the families over the years. So just when we see the person in uniform going out there, obviously they're the tip of the spear. They deserve a lot of credit for putting themselves out there. But there's usually people who are back home who are also having to serve just in a different capacity. So for all of you who are spouses or kids of veterans, thank you for hanging in there because we know it's not easy. Incidentally, how many folks here served post 9/11? How many people do we have that were veterans post 9/11? Okay, so we've got quite a bit and probably a variety of service. So thank you. So thank you for your service, and I really do. Just having been able to see different parts of the country in my time in the military, but also in my time when I was in Congress and so on and so forth. This is one of the best military communities and veterans communities in the country right here in Northeast Florida. Okay. And it means a lot to folks. It means a lot to people, who served. And, I just remember anytime I'd be out in town here, if I ever, usually you don't, you kind of put in the uniform and you get in or whatever. But if I was ever out in uniform, everybody would come up and say thank you for your service. I mean, it was just automatic that would happen. We're fortunate in Florida. We are the most veteran-friendly and military-friendly state in the country. We're proud of that. And so we have Northeast Florida is a great community. The Panhandle has great communities. The Tampa area is great, and we have so many others. And so it's the type of thing where when you're in the military, and most of this is mostly probably Navy because we have so many Navy installations, but if you get assigned in Florida, you get that Florida residency and you hold on to it. You don't let it go, even as you start going. And you know what? A lot of those folks come back when they're done with their service. And it's something that enriches our country or our state very much to have our veterans here, to have them involved in a whole host of other pursuits. And I can tell you, whenever I had an opportunity to hire anybody who had served, I knew that would be somebody that I could count on. And that'd be somebody that would really work hard and do everything for the right reason. So we're fortunate to live in a state that honors the military service, that honors our first responders. We did last year for the legislative session, we did $1,000 bonuses for all sworn law enforcement, EMT, and fire because they had done a lot for us. And we'll continue to do that because we know, and again, 9/11 is a once-in-a-generation type of event to respond to. But you even look in Florida, just recently we had the condominium collapse down in Surfside. Terrible tragedy. Immediately, our first responders were on site. They ushered a lot of people to safety. And then they searched on a very big, dangerous pile of rubble to try to find anybody that they could. And they did that for weeks. Really very difficult emotionally and physically work. So when you see those things that happen, you know that these are the folks that are going to be there for us. So tomorrow, as we reflect on this and as we look, just keep all those people in mind who've done so much for us, responding to 9/11 and the years since, but then all the people who may not have any connection to 9/11, but are wearing the uniform and putting themselves out there in order to defend the safety of their communities and ultimately to defend our Constitution, our freedoms, and our way of life. So God bless the men and women of this 9/11 generation. Thank you for what you've done. For all those who gave their lives in service, you're not forgotten. We remember, we thank you, and we know that this country is better because of you. Thank you all. God bless everybody. We're going to have a program. Yeah. So. Yeah, we're going to finish the program. I'm happy to take one.
I can. Well, listen, I mean, he's a tough act to follow. Let me just say, honestly, one of the reasons why I wanted to come was because I just wanted to say thank you. He laid it out better than I ever could. But I will say this, as a wife, As somebody who has the privilege and honor to be the First Lady of the state of Florida, I just want to say thank you to you, Governor. Thank you for your service to the country. And it had not been for this wonderful military community, we would not have met. So I am very blessed for everything that this community has done to serve the nation and its people, and to our first responders. Everything that you have done, we are with you. And so, God bless you every day. And also, he said one other point that I think resonates with me. As a sister to my sister Kate, who is an Air Force pilot, C-17, Operation Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, C-17 pilot. And my father, who was an Air Force veteran, my grandfather, who served in World War II, he was towing ammunition in the Pacific Ocean, to a brother-in-law who's a C-17 pilot, to a husband who was in the Navy. For those families who support those who serve, thank you for your service as well, and may God bless you.
Thank you, First Lady. So the last part of our program today was perfectly segued into by all of the remarks and appreciation by both the Governor and the First Lady. The American Legion has had a program called the Law and Order Awards for many years. And so today, presenting this year's recipients and explaining a little bit about the Law and Order program is our Law and Order Chairman, Roy Havikas.
Thank you, Commander. Governor, Lady. Good afternoon, everyone. As the Commander stated, I'm Roy Havikas. I'm a Navy veteran. I'm a past post commander here, and I am the Law and Order Awards Chairman. Today, as we honor all of our first responders, we will recognize two individuals who have stood out among their peers this past year. A little bit about me. I volunteered to undertake the position as awards chairman 10 years ago. I take a personal interest in this program, being a retired law enforcement officer from New Jersey after more than 26 years of service. In addition, I also have 15 years of volunteer firefighter service in my hometown community back in New Jersey. I know and I can appreciate firsthand what it takes to do your jobs. I also know doing the job of a first responder can sometimes feel like a thankless one. So today, we here at Post 233 want to thank you all for the jobs that you do. We appreciate that you are here today and that you are dedicated to the safety and well-being of the families here in St. Johns County. May God bless you and keep you safe always. Being a first responder may sound like an ordinary job title to many people, but it does come with many risks, both known and unknown. We applaud you for the oath you have taken. Your pledge to protect and serve our community. You are the ones that people will call when they are in need. Fires, vehicle crashes, medical emergencies, robberies, break-ins, domestic violence, natural disasters, and that list goes on and on. You are the professionals who rush to their aid without hesitation. You are you. You are who you are. You are our first responders, our heroes, unsung heroes in times of need, our unsung heroes that possess both pride and dedication in the profession that you have chosen. And for this, we thank you. Let us not forget, too, that the families of our first responders, we thank you, too, for your unwavering support that you show your loved one, your first responder. Know that the people here at Palm Valley Post 233 have all of you in our thoughts and prayers daily, that you return home safely to your families after each tour. I just get a little personal here on this. 20 years ago, on September 11th, 2001, terrorist attack on the United States took the lives of 457 first responders and more than 2,500 civilian lives. One of these first responders was a close personal friend of mine. Patrolman James Lynch was a New York, New Jersey Port Authority police officer. He was at the World Trade Center that morning. He wasn't there to do a work shift. He was there to finalize his retirement paperwork after 22 years of service. When that first plane struck the Twin Towers, and on that fateful day, Jim sprang into action. Protect and serve. And he did, helping civilians to safety, continuing his efforts until the building collapsed around him and he perished along with countless others. A hero for sure, a devastating, senseless loss of lives, and an honor to have been his friend and reflect his story of bravery. Patriot Day, September 11th, is appropriately named in honor of those who made that ultimate sacrifice that tragic day. You will never be forgotten. The American Legion Law and Order Award Ceremony recognizes all of the men and women who respond selflessly to ensure the safety of our communities, our first responders, our unsung heroes. The goal of the program is to select a well-rounded individual who has exceeded above and beyond the duty requirements expected of their positions and has shown a distinct pattern of community service coupled with professional achievement. Today's recipients were both nominated by their respective superiors, their commanding officers, and have received the endorsement of Fire Chief Jeffrey Privat and Sheriff Rob Hartwick, respectively, and that they have met the criteria that's been established by the American Legion and are eligible to receive these awards. So without any further ado, I would like Lieutenant Jason Burrell, St. Johns County Fire and Rescue, and Deputy Eric Morea of the St. John County Sheriff's Office to please step forward and accept your awards for Firefighter of the Year and Law Enforcement Officer of the Year.
Want to do photos?
Let me step out of the way.
Oh, get in here, get in here, get in here. We got them? Who's taking them?
Can we come in front of the podium and talk? Yeah.
Oh, so stand right in front of this, yeah.
All right, right here on 3, 1, 2, and 3.
All right.
That's good.
We good?
Commander, however you want
I
to.
told them I'd take a question. Go ahead,
Oh,
sir.
okay.
Governor, the president had a lot to say yesterday, and he didn't say your name, but obviously it was important to you. What did you have to say to him back when it came to South America?
Well, I would just say generally, when you're taking action that's unconstitutional, that threatens the jobs of the people in my state, many, many thousands of jobs, I'm standing for them. We're going to protect their jobs against federal overreach. And this is a guy who criticizes the state of Florida for protecting parents' rights. He says school boards should be able to eliminate parents' rights and force 5-year-old kids to wear masks all day. That's what he thinks is appropriate government. Yet, here he comes from Washington, D.C., instituting an unprecedented mandate, which even his own people have acknowledged in the past is not constitutional. That's not leadership. And I think the problem I have with Joe Biden more than anything, this guy doesn't take responsibility for anything. He's always trying to blame other people, blame other states. This is a guy that promised when he ran for president that he would shut down the virus. If you look now, there's 300% more cases in this country today than a year ago when we had no vaccines at all. So his policies are not working. He's doubling down on things that are going to be very destructive for the livelihoods of many, many Americans, and obviously going to be destructive to our constitutional system and the rule of law. And so these are times when, if you believe in that Constitution, you got to stand up. And obviously, the substantive issue is important because there are places that are going to toss aside people who've worked. They've worked this whole time throughout COVID. Now, all of a sudden, they should be tossed aside. They were working when nobody had vaccine. You don't know their history. You don't know why they're making decisions that they're making. Many of these people have already recovered. and they have immunity. The idea that somehow you have somebody that gets a Johnson & Johnson, they can work, but someone that's got natural immunity somehow can't, that natural immunity is strong. So it's not based on science, and you can say he's saying he's losing patience with people. You know, at the end of the day, we don't live with a one-person rule in this country. We live in a constitutional system which people's rights are respected, but particularly in this juncture, their livelihoods and their jobs have to be protected. I mean, just think about, you know, what this mandate would do. It's going to drive people out of work, out of hospitals, out of all this stuff where you have a need for people. So it's totally counterproductive, and I think it'll ultimately lose in court. But before that, you know, there needs to be action taken to protect the people of our state and hopefully of the entire United States. Nobody should lose their job based on this decision. All right.
Still think Florida is just another state? Does that sound like a man that is afraid of Joe Biden? Less than 24 hours. Don't tell me he had a chance to prepare some kind of a speech. The truth of our Constitution and what liberty means lives inside of our governor. Florida is a very, very different place. Somebody earlier in the chat mentioned, where's the governor of Tennessee on all this? Where's the governor of North Carolina? We know where the governor of Georgia is, don't we? I'd like to hear from Governor Abbott. I'm not sure what's going to happen in Missouri or Arkansas. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Asa Hutchinson, to be very honest. Florida is different. Not only do we have a governor that respects the Constitution, he's willing to not only fight for it in the courts, he's willing to fight for it in the legislature. And every time that tyrant in D.C. speaks, we will have an answer. It will not stand here. Governor DeSantis is not going to be president. He's not going to be anyone's vice president. He will govern the state of Florida. And when his time is up after 2 terms, which will be 2025, if I'm not mistaken, we will stand up another constitutional conservative to govern us. If you would like to live someplace where freedom and liberty and the Constitution and your rights matter, get to Florida. But by all means, quit pining for Washington, D.C., because that's over. D.C. is done. The threat of military force, which, by the way, was the only card D.C. ever had to play, that's over after the retreat and surrender to the Taliban. And make no mistake, it was surrender. It wasn't just ending a war. They surrendered to the Taliban. The Fort Hood shooter is doing dances and celebrating that they won. The people who retreat, the people who take casualties upon the retreat, they're the losers. So I know many have many challenges to overcome before they could make it here. I would begin, if I were you, trying to overcome those challenges or get them out of the way if you value these things, because it's going to come to a head very soon, and Florida residency is going to mean something. I have begged and I have pleaded and I have tried for months to get people to wake up to this. There are even some states here in the South that are great pretenders, but their leaders behind the scenes just stay silent in times like this. Where are the rest of the governors? I applaud Kristi Noem. She's spoken up. Why Marjorie Taylor Greene has to speak for Georgia is quizzical to me. It really is. So I will leave it there, but that seemed a lot more like what should be an appropriate honoring of Patriot Day. Something we're not going to see from Joe Biden tomorrow, I guarantee it. So, if you hadn't seen my earlier video, go check out the Patriot Nurse, guys. Her most recent video on YouTube was prophecy, when she started talking about idolatry. She's absolutely right. It's not about just carving an image and bowing down before it. Worshipping as a cult and as a group, with no exceptions. That's the definition of one. Especially when it comes to the carnalistic nature, I could go on, but believe me, the Patriot Nurse called it a week ahead of time. She was even sitting in her car and even said, I just had this need to make a video, meaning the Holy Spirit was speaking through her. She was being given a prophetic vision, and she shared it. And it has now come to pass, and that's why I had to speak about it earlier today. So God bless. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I very much appreciate it. We will, of course, see you tonight on Twitch. And once again, I'm sorry about last night. I had every intention of being on Twitch, but something did come up that I just could not put off. So anyway, God bless. Pray for each other, lift each other up, and we will see you tonight right around 10 o'clock, a little after, on Twitch. Take care. Thank you.